Are you sure you want to do this?
Alien Romulus is one of my most anticipated movies of the year, probably second at this point behind Joker, Folie à Dieu. And yeah, I really love the director, Fede Alvarez. I love what he did with Evil Dead, and Don't Breathe is one of my favourite kind of horror thrillers of the last couple of decades. Really liked what he did with that, so I was very interested to see what he was going to bring to the Alien franchise, especially given some of the lip service that Ridley Scott has been giving the film upon its release. But we have had that before with many a movie in which, you know, previous creators get involved and say, yes, this is awesome, this is the fans are going to love this, and you kind of wonder, well, how much did they get paid to say that? But yeah, so I take that stuff with a pinch of salt, but suffice to say, I was really looking forward to this film. Now, it follows a crew of people that come from a mining planet run by Weyland Yutani. They all have their own reasons for wanting to get off it, and I think if you saw the opening of the film, you'd definitely be in their corner to want to get off this place. But they become aware of a space station just above them that may provide the tools they need, the things they need to get off this mining planet once and for all. So obviously they go up and antics ensue. That's your plot. It's your basic plot. I don't really want to go into it any more than that for fear of spoilers. I will try and get through this review without spoilers. But yeah, that's kind of what we're dealing with. First and foremost, what I will say is this feels like a greatest hits of all of the Aliens franchise. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, if Alvarez is cribbing from the best bits, then there's a lot of really good best bits to crib from. And he does so whilst also putting a slightly new spin on it. Or making it feel fresh at any rate. You know, there's nothing new under the sun, as Solomon says, but you can make things feel fresh by the way in which you deliver them. And I think for the most part, Alvarez does that here. I would say that there are a couple of characters in it that are really the meat and bones of the story, and maybe the rest of the team are somewhat cannon fodder. They're kind of perfunctory. They're not quite as filled out as much. They do have enough reason for being there, kind of thing. Like we get like what they're about and that. Some of those reasons for who they are as people aren't quite enough to stop you going, well, that guy's a douchebag, isn't he? So you know, you get your token douchebag on board. He has reasons for being a douchebag that are kind of relatable, understandable, and yet you still can't help but feel he's still a douchebag. And I think that probably comes down to the fact that not enough character work is done. We're given a piece of information that tells us why he's a douchebag, but beyond that, we're not given any other reason through his behaviour to kind of sympathise for him or empathise with him. Beyond that, our two main characters, Rain, played by Kaylee Spaney, and Andy, played by David Johnson, they're the main characters, really. They're the ones we're following. They're the ones that have the relationship that we're really meant to kind of identify with. They're brother and sister, and there's stuff there that, again, if I say much more, it might be a spoiler, and I just don't want to do that for you. I think you should go into this as fresh as possible. But I like what they do there. I also think that within the film, we get several kind of elements to it that go back to the thing that I think Ridley Scott was always interested in, which is AI, artificial intelligence. There's elements in here that kind of look at the dangers of artificial intelligence and our attraction to it, I guess, that it in itself being one of the dangers. When we get to a point of no longer being able to separate what is real and what isn't real, that in and of itself could be a danger. But we get some stuff in there in terms of that. But for the most part, this is a nuts and bolts, stick a bunch of people in an environment that is threatening, that is oppressive, that has many dangers about it already, even without an alien presence, and then, hey-ho, let's stick the alien presence in there and go absolutely bat poop crazy, especially in the third act. Now, like I say, I think it is a bit of a greatest hits. I think the plus side of that is that it can take some of the elements in a few, like Alien Resurrection, for example, and Alien 3. It takes some elements from those and then improves on them, because those films weren't particularly great, but they did have nuggets within them, ideas that, had they been kind of executed in the right way, could have been something really special. So what Alvarez does is he says, okay, maybe those films weren't great, but I'm going to take the bits in them that, you know, were nuggets, and I'm going to expand on them. I'm going to do them the way they should have been done. And I feel like that's what we get for the most part. So the bits that didn't quite work due to execution in those films really work here, because they're executed in the way they always should have been. Now, there are other elements, as I say, if you do it in the greatest hits, there are elements that are quite jarring. The biggest one for me is a particular line of dialogue that is dropped at a very specific moment. And it's one of them throwback lines of dialogue. Well, we're going to say it because this character said it in that one, and I'm just kind of like, oh, it irks me. It's like, I was so invested in the film, and I was like, even though like there was bits I was recognising, it all worked. It all felt organic. But as soon as that line was dropped, my back was up, I cringed. I was like, and then it kind of took me out of the film just for like that minute or two, because I'm there thinking about that line now rather than being in the story. So I wish they hadn't have done that. I wish they'd leave lines of dialogue alone. Like, just because something's famous, just because something was like, you know, iconic, leave it there. Leave it iconic for that reason. Don't try and jump on the back of it and like wink, wink, nod, nod at fans. It's annoying. It's always annoying. I hate it when they do it. But this particularly, it was jarring, primarily because the line of dialogue that was said originally, way back when, had a very specific meaning. It came from a particular element of the character. So saying it here just willy-nilly because it's a cool line completely loses all traces of that. And again, it makes it stand out like a sore thumb all the more. So that was probably my biggest complaint. My second complaint, second of two, because I really do only have two complaints about the film so far. Maybe on repeat viewing, more will rear their head. But so far, it's the line of dialogue. Leave that alone. Don't do that. Big mistake. The second is the gaping hole, I would say, of just how this group of miners, who clearly aren't very well off, shall we say, you know, they're dreaming bigger. They want to be off planet. They're not allowed to go off planet. They seem to be there kind of almost serving a sentence. It's like it's a kind of prison mining planet almost. They want to get off, and obviously they discover this space station floating above the planet. Okay, cool. Why haven't other people, like, not necessarily why haven't other people, I mean, they do mention the fact that we need to get there first before others do, because if we found it, others will, although nobody actually does. No one rocks up at any point during the film. Like, I mean, that would have been a nice kind of moment, I think, as if more kind of marauders or more pirates started rocking up, not knowing someone was already there, and then suddenly we get a whole host of new characters and cannon fodder, and it just becomes, you know, that would have been an interesting element, but we don't. They mention it, but then it never happens. So it is literally like they are the only ones who've discovered it. And given that this is a planet run by Weyland-Yutani, and the space station that is up there that has gone to pot is Weyland-Yutani, I can't help but think that Weyland-Yutani would have got there first, or at the very least would have known about it, you know, would have had the tech. You know, if this band of misfits has the tech to know that that something's up there, I'm sure the people that practically run the planet would also have the tech to know that something is up there and is going to miss. So yeah, that for me was a gaping hole. Like there should have been at least some kind of military vessel that rocks up at some point from Weyland-Yutani, which then complicates the mix. But that just doesn't happen. So for me, that was just like that bad writing there, I think. Those 2 points, they're the weaknesses of the film for me. They're the bits that stuck out. But beyond that, I really enjoyed it. I love the tension, the way in which Alvarez builds tension. I love the visual callbacks because they're not so on the nose that you're just going like, oh, this is all just callbacks. It's like you feel like the DNA of all of the movies in the Alien franchise are in here, but not in a way that's just like, oh, let's tick off that box, let's tick off that box, let's tick up. No, it just feels like Alvarez has pulled DNA from bits to create something that stands on its own, that is its own thing. It's not super original. I don't think it expands the lore in any truly meaningful way. But if you're just looking to experience things we've experienced before, but in a fresh take, and enjoy being scared, enjoy the tension, enjoy watching these characters navigate some pretty hairy kind of sequences, then this is going to be right up your street. I found that in terms of pacing, this is more akin to, well, definitely to the first two, in that we have like a 35-40 minute kind of build-up process, a setup process, getting to know who these characters are. We know where they're going, so there's tension in that, like when a thing's going to kick off. So that 40 minutes for some people might say, oh, it's slow, the pacing's a bit off, which is what people always say. But I think it's, they take the time, they do the due diligence to primarily for us to get to know the two main characters. And get the setup, get the layout of where they're going, and then the poop hits the fan, so to speak. And once the poop hits the fan around that 40-minute mark, it doesn't let up after that, and it just becomes a constant exercise in tension and terror, and just giving us the aliens which we want. Let's see some aliens stalking some people. It's what we want. It's what we need. Cracking stuff. What about you though? Have you seen it? Do you concur, or do you think I'm smoking crack? Leave your thoughts down below. Thank you for watching this review, and until next time, cracking.